Welcome to The Dark Outsider. Today's story is a special one, a bit different than some of the other stories I've done on this channel. This is a true story that happened to me, yours truly, The Dark Outsider. I hope you like it, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Now let me tell you the story. Back in 2009, the company I used to work for was acquired by a larger business located in Kansas. When I think of Kansas now, it is not like what most people quickly conjure up. Images of Dorothy and Toto on the farm and a twister in the background. No, for me, it's of something completely different. Something that actually still makes me uneasy when I do think about it. Me, being slightly naive and ignorant, I was not very familiar with the Midwest at all. I'm just a simple guy from the Northeast who vacationed more out of the USA than inside of it. One of the things I learned when traveling there a few times, while going back and forth between our old New Jersey office and the new Kansas office, was that when a business's property had a large open area, many times they would also contain a cornfield. I discovered that apparently, if the business has a large enough area of land, they can plant corn in that area and use it for some kind of tax benefits. Of course, once I learned this fact, that's when I noticed cornfields almost everywhere. It wasn't just the farms as I had presumed. There were as many small fields on the properties of office buildings as well. The hotel I was staying at for the business trip had a field too on the side of its property, but not in the rear. Located in the back of the hotel, there was a small patio area that contained a few round patio tables as well as a path that led to the small pool area. Beyond the pool area, there was a large lawn area, which reminded me a lot of where I lived in New Jersey. This lawn area was about 50 yards or so, and beyond that there was a two-way street that intersected the hotel property and a large cornfield. Now, I don't remember what day it was, but it was the middle of the week, so we'll just say Wednesday night. I smoked cigarettes at the time, so at night, after returning from the Kansas office, I would sit back there, smoke, have a few drinks, and usually just bullshit with my other coworker, Rob, who was there with me. We had been at the hotel for a couple of days already, and we happened to meet a guy outside the first night. He worked at the hotel. He would occasionally come there too when he was on break, hang out for a bit, smoke a butt, ask us about New Jersey, and he would tell us about Kansas. He was around our age and was a cool enough guy to just shoot the shit with, and he told us that if we were out there and he saw us, he could sneak us out some bags of chips or some soda, so we didn't have to continue paying for them all the time. He couldn't get us free alcoholic drinks, but having to continue to pay $3 for a 20-ounce soda or $2 for a small bag of Doritos, it would save us $10 or so we gladly accepted. Like I said earlier, I don't exactly know what day it was, but it was pretty dark, around 9:30. I was outside alone and had just gotten off the phone with my wife. I decided to smoke one more cigarette, have one more drink, and was going to call it a night. As I sat there, a few moments later, Rob came outside. He asked me for a cigarette, and we ended up hanging out for another 30 or 40 minutes. Rob sat at the table with his back to the road in the cornfield facing me. At first, I thought that my eyes were playing tricks on me. But every so often I thought I would see, out of the corner of my eye, something by the road at the edge of the cornfield. I would look over, but when I did, I couldn't see it when I looked in that direction. Eventually, Rob noticed I kept looking over his shoulder, finally asking what I was looking at. I think I keep seeing something walking over there by the field. I pointed. He turned around, looked, and doesn't see anything as well. "You're bugging out, dude. Have another drink." He laughed and took a drag off his cigarette. I agreed, shrugged it off, grabbed my drink, and just as soon as I took a sip, there was an incredibly loud howling sound from the area I kept seeing that figure. It wasn't the sound of a person howling, but also wasn't the sound of an animal either. I can't really describe it, but it literally made me jump. Rob, of course, heard it too, dropped his cigarette, turned back around, asking, "What the fuck was that?" Of course, now we're both staring intently at the road into the field. At first, there was nothing. No movement. No sounds. Just the high-pitched squeal of crickets. Crickets so damn loud it was like they were screaming directly into my ear. They were easily the most prominent sound in that deafening silence that followed the blood-curdling howl I had just heard. It was Rob who saw it first. "Holy shit, is that what you saw?" He pointed his finger. I looked where his finger aimed. In the dim, outer glow of the street lamp, I saw it. The thing I kept seeing earlier. But this time, it was out in the open. "Yeah, that's it. Holy shit. Is that a person?" We kept looking. The thing just stood there. It looked like a fairly tall but lanky person standing there with either a hoodie or long dark hair covering its shoulders, completely dark. Its head was cocked to its side, hanging over its left shoulder. It was difficult to see in the darkness, also quite a distance away, but it just stood there, just outside the full light of the street lamp, motionless, staring back at us. He or it had to have known we saw it, the way it was just standing there, staring at Rob and I, just like we were looking back at it. If I had been right next to it, I probably only would have heard its breathing. Other than that, it just stood there, frozen. Eventually, after what seemed like minutes but was probably no more than 10 to 15 seconds, it slowly started walking backwards, disappearing, back into the cornfield. Rob and I both continued to stare in the direction for another moment or two. It was Rob who spoke first. "All right, dude, that was fucking weird. You can stay out here if you want, but I'm going back inside and going to sleep. I'll catch you tomorrow." I agreed. I don't know if it was just somebody playing a trick or what, but didn't really feel like finding out, especially since my wife told me, "Be careful and don't do anything stupid," when I had spoken to her earlier. I grabbed the rest of my drink and my pack of cigarettes and went inside too. The next day, Rob and I went to the new office. We did our work and talked about it a little bit, but not as much as I would have thought. And maybe it was just me being extra alert because of my wife and my 9-month-old daughter at home, but what we saw the night before was still on my mind. A lot. So later that evening, after we were back at the hotel again for the rest of the night, I ran into Marcus, the guy that worked at the hotel we had met earlier. He was bringing in one of those large brass concierge luggage carts from outside. I nodded to him and he signaled for me to walk over. "Hey, did you guys hang out last night? I went out there around 10:30 and you and Rob weren't there." I told him we had been, but we went inside early. He asked if it was because I had to get up early for work, and I told him no. I then proceeded to tell him what we heard and saw outside last night. It was like a ghost walked over his grave. He stopped rolling the cart, looked at me and said, "Damn, you've seen it too?" Shocked, I replied, "What do you mean, saw it too?" He kind of nervously chuckled and told me that he himself had never seen it, but he's heard about other guests in the last few years that have asked the hotel staff about the man by the cornfield. Immediately, my mind conjured up the image of the man or thing we saw standing just outside the dim glow of the streetlight the night before. I remember the chill that ran down my spine as he told me this. In fact, I felt it as I typed this story out. Marcus told me he's worked there for about 3 years, and he said at least 2 to 3 guests every year or so asked the hotel staff about it. Then he told me his manager, I believe her name was Laura, she'd been working there for over 10 years, and she had heard about it too, from her old boss. Apparently, whatever or whoever it is, has been witnessed at the edge of that road, lurking by the cornfield for well over 10 years, if not more, which is pretty creepy if you ask me. Needless to say, Rob and I decided to just hang out in the front of the hotel when we had our cigarettes and a beer. We never went back to the patio the last few days that we were there. It happened to be the final time I had ever gone back to Kansas. Just a few months later, the company that acquired us shut down our main New Jersey office and let all of us go. To this day, I never found out anything more about the thing that lurked at the edge of that cornfield. And, believe it or not, I don't think I ever want to find out what it was.